We have an identity that's made in God's image. And all too often, we end up taking on this the other identity, a different identity. I call it the ego I am not versus the God I am. And this identity is who we really are, but we have been stricken with like an amnesia. So our true origins, are not what people tell us. People will say you're the sum total of your past. What past? Because you have two. In the past you were created as God, and then there's the historic past where everything's messed up. Which one do you want to be the sum total of? I know that your past has some positives, but will you take pure perfect divinity or a little good and a little not so good? It sort of doesn't make sense, but humans say this all the time. Well, I guess I have to be grateful that I went through a lot of garbage in my life because it made me who I am today. No, it didn't. It made you who you think you are, and it's not good. It isn't good. There's a divine. Why did we ever think that we would need to recreate ourselves? We were made perfectly in the image of God. We're still that perfect image. There's a spiritual self in my upper three chakras. That's my I am. There's a soul, as we move down the chakras, the upper three, God, spirit. In my heart, there's a soul. And then my lower three chakras is my humanness, my physical, emotional, and intellectual self. So I have a trinity of divinity in me, I have a trinity of humanness in me, and a heart in between those two trinities. In my heart, that's the center for the heart and soul. And in my chakra, for the heart and soul, there is my ability to choose. What do you think I'm choosing? Which one of these voices I want to listen to? One tells me you are nothing but genetics, past experiences, past lives, and so on. That's the ego hijacking me, telling me this is all I am, whatever's down here in my memory banks. God is saying silently, I am. God is, I am, we are. It's just all perfect. But we don't listen to that voice. Instead, this is called knowingness, the knowingness of God. And once upon a time, we thought we separated, and we moved on down to, instead of this upper, we moved on down to the heart and the soul. And the heart and soul doesn't know, instead it believes, which means I believe. See, there's a shadow of doubt. I think, I believe that I'm holy. Just doubting holiness allows a foot in the door for the ego to have stepped in. As soon as we say, I am, that was perfect. And as soon as we said, I wonder, I wonder, what if we weren't one with God? Boom, the Big Bang takes place, the heart and soul expands, it becomes a consciousness, and we all blew into an infinite number of little sparks of God. But the sparks are no longer part of the pure fire anymore. They're sparks that are shooting off into the universe that land and become embers that cool off eventually, become cold, solid little embers that are becoming like pieces of wood, let's say. And those are called your human self. Cold. A little ember, not even a flame anymore, of curiosity. Who am I really? Or what is it like to be aligned with God? So in a perfect world, the God I am could be felt in my heart if I chose to remember who I am. I would feel it in here perfectly. And then it could be channeled all the way down to the next step, the next thing that I am. Spirit, soul, matter. So all of a sudden my human self could experience God in as much as you can experience God in a three-dimensional manner, but it would be like having a light body versus a body. You would live to be infinitely in age, but at least 1,000 years like they did in the Bible, and no, that was not a metaphor. They lived a long time. And aging gradually happened because we gradually forgot who we were. So we could live, but we would be in a state of peace. It would be like Eden, peace on earth. And that's what we're heading back to, peace on earth. But the peace doesn't come because you live longer, just because we start fixing diseases. That's not what I mean by immortality, let's say. It's a consciousness. It's not, I can make my body live longer. That's not what immortality is. Immortality is when I love you so much, all of you so much, I'd like to hang out with you forever. And most people can't say that. And if they do, they say it and then it's gone a few years later. Did I say forever? Oh my God. You know, did I say till death do us part? Because I'd like to die, you know, sooner than I had planned, because this isn't really going very well, you know. Unfortunately, that's what's happening on this planet. And it's changing, though. In our lifetime, what was crucified, meaning we chose death, is becoming resurrected. We're starting to recognize its choice, and we wake up. So this thing happened, that we were one with God, we descended into being individual souls, and then eventually materialized as individual bodies, meaning the lower three chakras. And that's what most people think they are. They're just lower three chakras. Some are just the root chakra. They think they're bodies and they die and they're done. Some don't even give any investment to the emotional or intellectual part of their humanness. But you have a human trinity, all of us, in us. And it could be reflecting God from heaven to earth, as it is in heaven. That's what it means. It doesn't just make the earth as it is in heaven. I am the earth. On earth, in me, as it is in heaven. That needs to be our knowingness and our affirmation. But there's a problem. We forgot about this, the presence of God. We then, instead of having a belief, maybe we're definitely part of God, but maybe, what if we could separate, started becoming a complete, I believe I'm separate. When I believe I'm separate from God, and you're part of God, I'm now separate from you. And then when I'm separate from you, I now materialized a body that's in a different form than yours over there. We have different colors, different genders. We don't agree on anything anymore. In God, that's not possible. But on earth, it materialized. And people are scraping to get by. And now they think that creating like some sort of a ism, whether it's a racial thing to group up as a race or group up as a gender or group together. None of those are, even grouping up as religions, none of those things can help. Because those are pseudo ways of trying to repair something that's really deep inside. I chose to believe I'm separate from God. If I can just work on reversing that, I am not separate. I am as God created me. I'm absolutely determined to see light in you even when it's not obviously there. I am absolutely determined. Because it's impossible for you to not have the spark of God in you. It's impossible. And we use the words like faith. Faith is, when we say I have faith in God, God's like, I'm already okay. I don't need your faith. I'm good. But God is saying, you think you're separate from me and you manifested it as separating from each other. So if you want to prove that you have faith in me, prove it by seeing it in each other. And we're like, oh no, that's not where we can see it. Exactly, God says. See? We put God where you'd never expect it, deep inside of yourself. And you say you want to find it, well, the job is made easier when you can see it in other people. Because there's only other people because you don't want to look at yourself. It's kind of a strange little bit of logic, but the only reason other people exist is because we have a propensity to not want to look within. So God says, fine, I'll give you plenty of gods outside. Well, I don't know. Boy, we have a different interpretation of what gods are, don't we, God, I mean, look at these. These are freaky people. Like, look at the things they do. And God is saying, all it is the ego trying to distract you from seeing what's really there. The same ego that distracted you from believing you're one with me. You chose to believe you're separate. You manufactured an ego to cover your tracks, and now it just keeps proving itself. Stop listening to it. It's like the worst of thugs, on this planet. It brutalizes, it threatens, it keeps you intimidated so that you don't calm down and look inside and say, I really am okay. I really am as God created me to be. And I'm going to get that in glimpses. I may not have one complete revelation, one time, full on, boom. And if you did, you'd turn to light anyway. So instead, it's going to happen in my ability to see light in other people. And when I do, I'm going to feel lighter. Well, wait, I was seeing light in you. Why do I feel better when I do that? because we're connected. Every time I see light in other people, I am healed to a new level. Therefore, I'm brought to the light to a new level, and we have ascended to a new level. The ascension isn't supposed to be something I run off to get away from this terrible planet. Whatever I experience in this, human life is a reflection of my beliefs in here. The more I start aligning my beliefs with Spirit, God, the more I'm going to start seeing it outside. And there's a challenge with that, because some people will say, that's not true, because I'm very spiritual. It's everybody else that's messed up. I mean, true, they'll think that. They'll say that. And so how do I argue with that? How do I, because it's hard to say, no, you're not as holy as you think. Because there's my thinking I'm holy, and there's my knowing that I'm holy, meaning as God really shows me that I'm holy, not my opinion of my holiness. So, there's this little switch that has to happen, where all of a sudden it's, even if I'm a pretty good person and I had some challenging experiences, or am having currently challenging experiences, there's a point where we work on our individual stuff, and you may have done that. And if you have that, then you have a good argument to say, I've really worked on myself. Why am I still encountering stuff constantly? People are still challenging. You're not wrong and you're not bad. You did work on yourself. Nobody should deny that. If you know you've worked on yourself, don't think that having challenging people means you've blown it or you're lying to yourself. No, you should be confident that you did work on yourself. However, sometimes these contracts have to burn off. They have to finish up by divine timing. Other times, you've worked on yourself, good. But have you worked on ourself? Because you're not only a you, you're a we. Oh. Okay. Yeah, okay, that makes sense, because I know that me that I worked on is fairly decent person, but I know the we is pretty messed up. How do I know that? Because there's evidence. My outer life is my evidence of how I'm doing inside. So we go from working on ourselves to working on ourselves collectively. You have sadness maybe, but you worked on the sadness, but you have now our sadness. You had your anger, now you have ours. How are you feeling about that? You know what that makes you want to do? I'm not wanting to be part of this hour anymore. I don't want to be the we. I want to go back to me working on myself, because now I'm good. Because I worked on myself, so I think I'm okay. It's everybody else that's messed up. But all that's doing is repeating the original fall. You see? I want to be away from you people. And you're repeating the original separation. So it's another disguise of the ego. Fine, you're going to work on yourself, huh? Fine. I see you're evolving. I don't really like this. So what I'm going to do is really get ready for you. Because you go ahead, keep working on yourself. Because when you get to the collective work you got to do, man, I am going to hit you so fast and furiously, it's going to make you want to spin, turn the other direction, a 180, and run back into the direction you were originally going. Wanting to be separate from everybody, disliking everybody, but everybody is you. It's just another level. We heal the individual self and the collective self. Once you heal the collective self, what's left? If I get holy here, and then I get holy here with us, the oneness, the next step is God. And our ego doesn't want us getting back to that place. So when you're working on yourself, please don't be discouraged. Just know that you might be working on collective stuff sometimes. And the same goes for when you're sharing. Take your stuff to the light. You have issues, let's say. Take it to the light. Take it to God. Here's what I'm dealing with. That's an important thing, because it shows I believe in and trust in God to be intimate, into me see, into me look, into me see, intimacy. And also vulnerability. Here I am. Okay, cool. You should also be able to do that with yourself. Do you do self-work? Do you do step work like in 12-step program? Do you work on yourself? Do you do self-inventory? You can pray to God, but you can also be escaping and trying to avoid self-inventory. So be able to take things to God, but also be able to be honest with yourself. Self-inventory. There's a third group. Others. Okay, now wait a minute. I don't mind telling God a few things. And I'm okay looking at some of my own things. I'm not telling anybody about some of my stuff with guys. It's all the same. If I don't trust you, I'm not trusting some part of myself nor God. It's connected. You're just another test of how honest I'm going to be. So can you bring it to others? And there's two levels of others. There's another friend or two, like a counselor, and then there's them. All of them. And for me, moving and coming to a center and teaching at a center, I kind of have, said anything and everything. I feel like to have secrets, and there's appropriate things that are, appropriate to not say and appropriate to say at a different time. Appropriateness, I'm not talking about breaching appropriateness. But generally speaking, I have said, look, as I'm here, I don't try to bleed all over the stage or anything, but I do try to say, here's where I'm at, and some, moments of this and that. It is important, but I learned there's one thing to be on tour, it's one thing to do what I do, but to stand in front of a group of people and be able to say, and by the way, and this struggle and that challenge, whether it was, raising kids when they were little or whatever it happens to have been, it slips into a talk here and there. I don't try to bemoan it, but it slips in. It's an interesting thing to be a spiritual teacher and say, and by the way, because it's an amazing test. Because when I stand, when we can, if we choose to do this, we can stand in front of people and be cold and shut off. But if you choose to do it another way, you stand and you basically say, look, for me to teach you and tune into what you want to hear, I have to be connected to you. How am I going to be connected to you if I can tap into your energy and you're not allowed to tap into mine? That doesn't mean that people should be psychically invading each other. I'm talking about just a loving trust. And so to be able to stand here and say, this or that or whatever at any given time, it's a challenging thing in the sense, because sometimes there's tears that have come a few times over the 8 years, or there's just whatever else. And sometimes when I've shared vulnerable things, people in the audience have choked up because I'm sharing something that's really hard in history or my history or my children's history. And I see people choke up. It's difficult to stand when you care and connect with people and you can feel that wave up here. You can feel that wave of emotion come back. It's hard. It's like, sometimes I'm like, look up quickly, don't look at him, It's like Paul McCartney said once, he was starting to play the song, The Long and Winding Road, and he started crying. And he said, hold it, and he stopped. He said, all right, when I come up here, sometimes you guys hold signs up. We love you, Paul, and we miss John or whatever. And he said, and I try not to look at him. He doesn't look like he's looking away. He said, but I try to look above and not read the signs. He said, but one of you caught me that time, and he started choking up. And that's human. You won't reach your divinity unless you can hold the human self in that kind of a safe space. But you guys create that for me and I create that for you. We create this because we're doing something incredible. And it's not something we're saying is better than or special. We're not comparing it. We don't name names to others. All we're saying is what we're doing is good. They could be doing good. That's all their business. All I know is right here and now, there's something fabulous about this vibration. Meaning on an ongoing basis, this thing we do. If this feels good to you, I don't just mean what I'm talking about. I mean this kind of intention, the general idea of what I'm sharing. Then embrace it. Start sharing with God. Share with a safe other, including yourself. Share with yourself too. But also share with safe others. Bring it out. Have no stone left unturned. Because people will think, I am my past. You are not. Bring the light to your past, and you'll find that it'll disappear. The ego that has been is a has-been. That's all. It's a has-been. It's gone. The ego wants us to constantly identify with our history because in the past, it seems, in the past is when we separated. So it bemoans that and makes everything past related so that we stay guilty for having separated from God. In the present, that's not happening. In the present moment where I can choose to connect with God, I'm not separate and I'm not separating. So if I can release the past and anticipations of the future and say consistently, here I am, God. What would you have me think today, feel today, know today? Staying in that openness, childlike consciousness, here I am. The divine feminine prayer, here I am. What would you have me do? Fill me. like I'm a spiritual womb. Fill me with creation. And then all of a sudden we realize in being filled with creation, there's a quickening. And we start to feel alive a little more today. And it might fade tomorrow because I have to make the choice again every day. But today I've chosen to be as God created me to be. And I start to feel the effects of that. This light, this presence of God should be coming all the way through. It should be coming all the way through. But it doesn't because something goes wrong in here. And that is our beliefs. So if I decide, okay, from now on, I'm going to do my best, starting out right now, I'm going to do my best to stay centered and be a loving person. The ego doesn't say, oh, fine, and walk away. The ego's like, oh, really? Well, we can't have that. So the ego's going to trigger and push buttons and jab at you to do things. Christians call it the devil. It's the only difference is one of them is part of me. The other religion is telling me it's somebody doing something to me. The other is I'm taking responsibility. We have found the enemy and the enemy is us. Hogo Pogo, yeah, that old classic book. So, or teaching or story, but so here it is. It's I get it. The devil, it's a part of my consciousness. And even if there's a devil, I still have to become immune to its voice, its guidance. Whether it's an ego or a devil, whatever you call it, I still have to take responsibility and not choose it as my guide. So it's an interesting thing because we have two voices. One is the Spirit of God calling us to remember, and one demanding that we forget. And every day we're making those decisions. And as soon as you even make a good, healthy decision to remember who you are, you can blow it 2 seconds later. But focus on how it felt for a moment when you were holy again. And then choose it again. Next time make it 4 seconds instead of 2. And then 6, and so on and so on. Get it get it to multiply. Become more of that consciousness. And that's our ultimate goal, guys. To become more of that. People say you need to honor your wounded self. Honor it means to simply give it a moment. Respect it, give it comfort. Don't honor it as though worship it. When they say honor your wounded self, those are people that are wounded and don't know how to honor anything when they say that to you. They don't understand it. To honor your wounded self doesn't mean to make it your God. It means to hold it. Honey, are you okay? Cradle it, comfort it. Are you okay? Self-talk. Sweetheart, what's going on? I'm so sad. Why? I felt this before. I'm rejected again. So you're in your hurt. So comfort that child, that person, as though you love it, because you should. You should be loving the hell out of it. So you hold it, and you hold it in grace, and you hold it in beautiful space. But don't worship it. When they say honor your wounded self, that's all it should mean. What you need to honor is your healthy self. That's the one to say yes, and really focus on fanning that spark into a flame. The other deserves love, not worship. Not that I'm saying you worship your healthy self, but you get the point. What we do is we make religions out of things. We make religions even out of our ego, and we come to its altar to worship it because people are afraid of their ego. They're afraid of what it'll do. Just like in any movie, sci-fi movie. Those movies where somebody finally says, I don't want to be part of this evil group anymore, they're usually demolished moments later. Because that's what the psyche tells us. If you try to become a better person, all the parts of you that are not better are going to devour you. So you might as well go along with the program and not make any parts of your ego suspicious that you're waking up. But then you're already dead. What's the point? Because you don't want to, be killed by the ego. Well, it's not going to kill you. You're already dead. You're already enslaved. Just run for it. Just run towards the light. And it'll hack at you and whine at you and scream at you and threaten you. It doesn't have any power over us at all, the ego self. It just seems like it. But when we run towards the light, we realize even if I die, I will ascend one moment later because I did what was right. I no longer lived in fear. So it's kind of an interesting thing because people talk about faith. And you think, faith in God. But again, I said earlier, Our faith in God is demonstrated in a sense by our faith in the God in each other. And that's not what we were hoping faith would be. We were hoping faith could be something blind. Like, as long as I say I have faith in God, and besides, I can't see God, so nobody's going to test me on this. So I can just walk around going, oh, I believe in God. You see what's happening? I can live a lie. You have faith in God. Let's move out of faith into action. Prove it. Well, there's no way to prove that I have faith in God. Yeah, there is. Find God in each other and have faith in people's God self. I'm not saying have faith in their ego selves. Even when they're coming from their ego, have faith that there's something beyond that, that if enough of us could see it, it would evoke from them and they would be different people. Who's going to be first? Well, not me, because I lived with them. You know, you can start and I'll try to pick it up towards the end, maybe, you know. But it doesn't work that way. Think of it instead. No part of God can be left behind. And so if I have to be the first person to know that in you there's a light, a spark of light, I don't care who you are, what horrible things you have done, in you there is a light that you have obviously forgotten. And if you had remembered, you wouldn't have done the horrible things you did. So the solution would be what? Shame you for the horrible things you did, or evoke the other part that wouldn't have done it. One is the solution. Let's do that. Is it easy? Well, of course not. And you're allowed to say to your groups that you confide in, or individuals you confide in, can you help me with this? You go to a prayer chaplain or, practitioners in different groups, and you say, or ministers or whomever, and you say, look, I'm really struggling with this person, and I don't think I can actually hold them in light yet. Would you help me do that? They can say, then let's pray. Because when they say let's, you're in. They're doing that surrogately on your behalf. And they can take your hands, and they can just completely ignore the wounds that they've done to you, and they can just affirm the positive. Sometimes they can also say, despite what has happened, which honors, respects that we're hurt. Despite the hurt. See, I don't want to tell you don't hurt, that they didn't do this to you. Instead, despite the hurts, we recognize that we have the power to give these hurts to God. We have the power to not choose to carry them continually. We have the right and the power to not be controlled by what this person's done to us. You see? And then going on to affirm, and instead, what really is there? Light. God's presence. See? And on and on and on. Affirming the truth. So if you can't find it in yourself to do it, have somebody do that with you. Remember, like even here, the prayer chaplains, the chaplains that we have, they do prayer and hands-on healing and counseling. You just sit in the front row. It's free. You just sit in the front row after any service. And if you have just one grievance out there, or if you have a block in your life, they can say, well, let's look behind that and see what that is, and then do prayer work with you to help you release it. This is miracle working, technically. That's the definition. To shift something that was stuck or blown out, messed up. Get some prayer done, because first of all, it can't hurt, but it most definitely is going to help. How much will it help? Depending on how much you want to let something go and how much you want to shift it. You could see God. You could absolutely have a vision of some kind. Miraculous things happening just because you took a moment to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to open myself up to God and to myself and to another. And in that, all of a sudden, if I'm able to do that, my relationships are healed for that moment. See, there's no separation because God, self, and others. All of my relations, as some indigenous people would say, all my relations. It means so many things, but that's one of them. All my relations with God, self, and others, I am choosing to let be holy today. How do I make it holy? You don't. It's already holy. But what I'm choosing to do is let go of everything else so that I can recognize the holiness that was already there. So healing doesn't actually come to us like FedExed from God. It's a funny thing. God's like, this is weird, these people, man. They're either blaming me and hating me, or they're sending me memos and cards and thank you letters. What are you thanking? I never had a problem. I didn't forgive you and you need to thank me. You got out of your way. I am thanking you because you're the only one that did anything. You got out of the way. Yeah, but you sent me a miracle. No, the miracles were there as natural effects of you getting out of the way. It's an amazing thing. But, if people want to, for now, go on believing this is all, God sent me, found favor in me today, and the Lord saw good in me, that's fine. But one day people will go, God, all this time, I was working so hard to be good, and I had it all along. So as I'm going to start coming to a close, faith is also such a misunderstood term, but we have faith in one of two things. You either have faith that God is as God created us to be, and we are complete and so on, or you have faith that you're flawed. But you're never without faith. So watch the terminology here. Sometimes people say, I have faith, I don't have faith. No. You always have faith. But you're either having faith in God is, or the ego I am not. You're either having faith in the truth of God, or in the falseness of the ego. But whichever one you have faith in, you have faith in it. And now you're going to believe it. And then you're going to expect it to show the fruits of your religion, your new religion. So your religion, meaning just play of term there, is a faith towards God, or it's a religion where I have a faith towards my ego. Whichever one you have put faith in is going to produce effects. So when the world isn't going so well, I have put my faith in something other than God. When we're hurting and we want a healing and it doesn't happen, I'm still putting faith in that it's a possibility that it doesn't happen. Should I shame myself? Not at all. Instead, just be able to go, isn't that a funny thing? As much as I know and have learned, isn't it a funny thing that this is still snagging, this is still kind of hooked? Just be able to look at it and laugh at it. If you shame yourself for not being spiritual enough, you're gone. And you're putting faith back into your ego again. Be able to say, wow, there's still that glitch. There's still that something, and it's got me hooked, and I'm really kind of frustrated. See it and own it and bring it to the light. Because if you bring it to the light, you're going to think, it must mean you're going to be fixed a moment later. That means you're hooked again on what the eyes see. Instead, when you say, wow, isn't that funny? Because I get it. I want to be fixed. It's not happening. I'm frustrated. But I'm going to give that too to God. Not just my ache, but my insistence that I be fixed to God. Now, even if I'm in pain, I can still see it and laugh at it. That's holiness. The holiness isn't when it all goes our way. The holiness is when internally we get it and we can still laugh at it. To be able to sing a little when you're in pain, to be able to pray when you're in pain instead of, I won't even pray because God isn't answering my prayers and giving me what I want. It's, wow, this has sure got my attention. And isn't it funny? I'm going to take all this attention that's going into an ache and I'm going to put it in the intensity of my choosing to join with God right now. To feel happiness or peace or joy despite how things seem to be. And that's when we neutralize that energy, that old pattern. And then it might be a contract that's going to burn off over time. Don't get hooked by it. Just, I am as God created me, despite the way things look. But if that's true, then it's also true that other people are as God created them. And when you don't see that, you got to say, okay, why am I not seeing that? And so in our relationships, we play out a lot of our stuff. We play out a lot of this belief in separation. God is the upper chakras. I'm not sure is in my heart, and it manifests in our relationships. People will bring up your uncertainties about yourself. People will abuse you and pick at you or do whatever they do to you, whether it's child abuse or adult abuse, whether it's verbal abuse or gossip, whatever it is. People will do that because they're forgetting who they are. If you only react to them, then you're confirming that you too don't know who you are. So everybody's insane. Hi, we're all currently out of our minds and not knowing who we really are. That's all you're affirming. Somebody has to say, I'm choosing differently. I see this. Because of the manifestation, I see what's really going on. And I'm going to take advantage, seize the moment and say, wait, forgiveness. Doesn't mean enable your behavior, but it means I'm going to switch something in here and not believe what you're telling me. You're telling me you don't like my hairdo. You're telling me you don't like me as a person or a mom or whatever I am. You're telling me you don't like it. You're criticizing my skills at it. When I get all devastated, it's called codependence. My happiness is so contingent on you liking me that when you threw, crashing kinds of words at me, I fell. And instead I'm supposed to say, wow, hold on. Okay, God, I get it. That person does not give me life, therefore they do not have the power to take life away. Think about it. Anytime you felt devastated by someone, you're affirming that they gave you life and they took it away, which means you have a false God. They didn't give you life. Why are you giving them so much power? Nobody really has power over us at all. So instead, I get it. I saw that. It just clicked. I got it, and I'm going to choose otherwise. They do not give life. Therefore, they cannot take life away. I slipped there for a moment and thought they could. Why? My own emptiness, and I wanted to fill my emptiness with that person's presence and so on and so on. So I got caught up in it. But I'm going to give that up now. You know what gives me life? You. This is why Jesus did that. Jesus turned the rocks into stone so you can fill your hungry stomach. You had been fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. Turn the rocks into stone. He says, man does not live by bread. If I, turn the rocks into bread. Man does not live by bread. So what he's saying is, something external does not fill me. And he's telling us to do that and know that in terms of our relationships with people. So somebody's, left you and you feel an emptiness. Then drop into Jesus' meditation for a moment. Wait, what is this? My ego is saying, if only they came back. No, you were only using them anyway. You were using them to prevent yourself from feeling what you're feeling right now. So you don't want them back. That's why sometimes we replace them so easily with someone else. You don't want the person back, even though you think you do. You want what they gave you back, which is an aspirin to keep from feeling the pain that you're feeling now that they left. That's called a pusher. That's all. They're just your dealer. They kept you medicated by saying, I could never love anyone as much as you. And they put an exclamation point at the end, and that exclamation point really did it for me. All it is confirming how empty I was in the first place. I needed you to say it just like that. And I needed you to say, your ex was just crazy to give up a person like you. I totally agree. Oh my God, you get me, like some stinking Hallmark movie, No. Come on. And in truth, if that is given to you as a gift, I love you more than nobody gets you but me, it's okay for you to see that. Don't say anything. You don't have to say, get behind me, Satan. Just inside recognize, ooh, this is a good one. They're really stroking my ego right now. And so what I would do is say thank you. You don't have to tell them about the revelations you're having. Just say thank you and be kind and go and sit with that for a bit. Because they're bringing that to you. So you might not want to contract into that relationship on those terms. Instead, if you're going to pursue such a relationship, you can say, I really appreciate the love you were just sharing with me and what comments you were making. And here's what I know. I know that we're human beings and we slip sometimes. It is my intention. I would love to be a great partner to you and so forth. I don't think I can, fulfill everything, all of your dreams and forever. One of us is going to die or leave at some point. So I would like to just allow us to be who we are and get to know each other and grow together. Rather than, it's all perfect now. That's neediness. Instead, would you like to walk towards a greater perfection with me? And on the way, I will sneeze. I will have issues. I might get sick now and then. I'll have a bad mood now and then. You see? A more honest, transparent thing. Not to worship that transparent, that stuff you're revealing, not to make it the big deal, but just to be able to own that it's there on my way towards a greater life. Is that all making sense? Yeah, so we have to learn to live these things in our life and relations and not bargain. So please remember, lastly, that the whole concept of people taking your power away. It is not possible for anyone to ever, in any way, shape, or form, take your power away. Certainly not without you giving it, but you're not the one that is your power nor gave your power to you. God did. God is your power. You can't give God away. It's who you are. So going back to how we started, today's talk is about identity. The only reason people can seem to take our power away is when we forgot who we are. It's still there waiting for us. It's still there, our identity and all the gifts and power, because your power comes from your identity. The only time you can feel like you gave your power away is when you forgot who you are. And other people can think that they take your power away, whether they do it consciously or unconsciously, but the only reason they can do that is when they don't know who you really are and they don't know who they are. God doesn't take anything, ever. It only gives, because that's what it is. I am so abundant, I can only ever give. I never go, oh, better cut back on that. There's nothing like that in God. It's just expansiveness, and it's love, and it's peace, and it's joy, and it's oneness. God is nothing but that. It's perfect. It never has to retract or take back. The whole Bible thing, and God repented that he made man, that's actually not true. But it was man's way of recording going, I bet God repents that it made man. I bet God really regrets that. That was us putting in the records those stories. And it's understandable because we were like, wow, we've just really blown it. But we projected that onto God, and God's like, hey, no habla inglés, like I don't even know what you're saying. I don't comprehend. I don't speak your language. I'm not in on that at all, But please, your power, it can't be taken, but you can seem to give it away. And when you give it away, it's not like an actual seeming act, although it does look like that sometimes, almost like a power of attorney to somebody. You decide what movies we're going to see. That kind of looks like a behavior where you're giving your power away. What I'm saying is those are just symptoms. The only seemingly real version is when you have forgotten who you are. You can't know who you are and give your power away at the same time. It's impossible. And you can't even forget who you are completely. But you can think you did, which means you're still responsible. How to reverse it then? Take responsibility. I want to take my power back. Where? How? I'm going to take my power back from that person. You're still dealing with outer people. There is no outer. We're all connected. What you really need to do is do it in here. If I stop giving it out, if I stop forgetting who I am, there's nothing for them to take. So you want to get your power back? Recognize I need to work on my identity. There are people who surround themselves with white light to protect themselves from negative energy. Okay? Which is okay. Do that. If it works for you, do that. But there's another theory. What if instead of wrapping white light around my perfection and goodness against you bad people, this will for sure keep you away. What if I just consider working on being light, so much light that it radiates and nothing could penetrate that light? Why don't I become the light I'm wrapping myself in? Just think about it. It's another option. That's the one I choose. Just be that light instead of, back, get away. It's just being that light. It's so beautiful. My way of teaching and doing things is a little different. So often I seem to just cut down some of these things that people blurt out there because they're not true. Somebody's got to be able to say, by the way, that thing, no, it's not true. Bring light to things. Bring a greater reality and consciousness to even sayings that people get used to throwing out there. Just be that light, and then you are protected. If God is with me, what could be against me? It's that consciousness. And on that note, that same thing with getting your power back. Just become more and more connected to God and recognizing your worthiness, your value. Now how could I give anything away and how could anybody take it? Because when I know who I am, it's like this. If I know who I am, I have integrity. And I also have self-worth. And then you say, hey, can I take something from you? No. Could I borrow? No. Or yes, it'll depend on how connected I feel and whether I feel that that's right for you or not. The greater good. Could I borrow money? Yeah. Could I borrow money? No. It's all going to come from how I'm feeling about that subject today. No, that wouldn't be the greatest good for us right now. Because that's something I hear, maybe that person does that a lot and they don't repay and then they feel guilty and then they hide from people they owe money to. I don't want to participate in that. I don't want to enable that. I don't want to encourage that in you. So it's actually for your greater good for me to say no at times. And then there's yes at times. How will I know which one? I've got to have a relationship with myself. I have to know how to connect with God and feel. What would you have me do? What is the greatest good in this moment? And then I go with that. In that sense, people don't take. What do you think the Bible meant by don't give money you can't afford to lose? Don't lend money. If you lend money, it says in there, if you lend somebody money, make it a gift. Don't expect it back. Well, there's different interpretations, some linear and not so linear about that, but one of the meanings is you should have no hooks to it. Don't give things that people could use to harm you. You know, and if people say, hey, tell me something about you, Michael, well, it depends. Why do you want to know? You see, like that. And you just throw things out there if it feels right. People sometimes have said, you know, when were you born? It depends. Why do you want to know? And one time I had an astrologer come up to me. I'm an astrologer, and could you confide your birth date to me? Because, you know, it's like I don't mention it. I just don't think much about it. I know astrology is a real science and an art that's accurate. I get that. I'm saying, as a teacher, there's certain things that people don't need to mess with because they get these stereotypes and these boxes in their head for teachers. And so it's like, well, you know, so I said to this one guy, okay, you know, I said, no, I don't really, you know, are you sure, you know, because I'm an astrologer. He said, no, I don't really bother with that, you know. But I do believe, because he's an astrologer, I said, I do believe in it. It works. It's great stuff. But no thanks. And then I sat with it for just a second, and I thought, walked over to him, whispered in his ear, I was born on this day and that year. And he's like, oh, okay. Swear to God, the next Sunday, somebody came up to me, oh, I heard you were born on, and I thought, isn't that interesting? Now, what a jerk. What a selfish, no, wait. I also could have not told him. So did he take my power? Guys, I did choose to trust him. Do I say now I would never trust again? No. I will not let somebody slipping make me lose faith in goodness. So would I think twice? Possibly. I'm going to do my best to get guided. And that was not necessarily a mistake. It could have been a mistake in my trusting. It could have been. But also it could have been just a test. Michael, are you attached to that? Well, let's find out. Whoa! You know, next week I could have went, whoa, never. Instead, okay. It's an interesting little test, and I feel good about it. I feel clear about it. If given, you know, certain circumstance, if somebody asked and they really needed, for some reason, believe they needed to know, I'm not going to be attached to not telling, but I'm also not attached to telling. Does that make sense? So please watch. Don't assume when something goes a little awry, you're supposed to completely retreat and shut everybody off, but it also doesn't mean keep opening up for more hits. Check in. What's the greatest good? And take care of yourself. When you do that, you're telling other people, you're teaching other people, you're modeling to other people that you care about yourself. Your privacy, you know, things like that. Being vulnerable, being open, being, you know, disclosing, transparent, as we say, doesn't mean inappropriately so. You know, I can say, well, there's a couple of people I've enjoyed sharing some time with since living here for 8 years, a couple of people in all those years. But I don't have to say, could you please stand? You know, and, you know, I don't need to do that. It doesn't make sense. And it could cause a lot of disturbance. An interesting thing happened, and we're closing now, but an interesting thing happened on the way to this. No. An interesting thing happened where somebody asked me, I think it was a few months ago, there was a spiritual teacher that was teaching in Sedona, and they supposedly left town. And they were doing pretty good, creating quite a buzz, but then there was also some other stuff. But Sedona tends to do that. So it kind of becomes a testing ground. You know, you could be a teacher and then there's a bunch of talk and gossip and attacks and that sort of thing. You have to decide whether you're going to walk through it. So this person took a few hits. You know, people started really picking on this person, and they decided to leave instead of kind of enduring, which is their decision. But I never met them, don't know them, don't know anything about them, never seen a lecture of theirs or anything like that. But what was interesting, somebody came up and said, Michael, can I talk to you privately? Sure. This person, have you heard of them? I said, yeah, a couple of the people said they went to a workshop or something. That's all I know. Well, but I heard in town that you were the one that ran them out of town. I'm like, I what? Yeah, you were the one. Oh man, this place, you know, this place. So I'm like, really? Never met them, don't know them. I ran them out of town. So fortunately, a close friend of theirs trusted me and talked to me recently about it. They may be here today, I don't know, but they trusted me and said, yeah, I heard that too. This is a friend of the person that got ran out of town, and a close friend. And they said, yeah, I heard that too. I said, I don't know anything about it. They said, well, I didn't hear it was just you. I heard it. You got together with some other local. Listen. I got together with some other local. What did they call us? The local spiritual elders. I'm like, first of all, I'm insulted that you're calling me an elder. No, but some elders got together and ran this person. I'm like, first of all, if I were to ever even do such a thing, which I wouldn't, go running somebody out of town, it would have been the elders that wanted to run somebody out of town. I would be up against them, not the person getting run out of town. That's not my way. So this kind of stuff happens, guys. It's the world is bizarre, and it's here to reflect to you our bizarre beliefs that we could be apart from God. This is how strange life would be if you could be separate. Do you like it? No. Then change it. Change what? Your beliefs. Well, I would if people didn't take my power. They can't. You're bleeding and you're complaining that sharks are coming after you in the ocean. Don't get in the water while you're bleeding. They're going to do that. That's what sharks do. So when you go, somebody broke my heart, they left me, you're still bleeding sometimes with abandonment, and they pick it up. And all they're doing is being sharks. They're just doing their thing. So stop bleeding. How? Heal. Heal. Become interdependent. Become healthy. Not needing a relationship, but enjoying the ones you have. And it could be a 1-year relationship. It can be a 10-year relationship. Feel no attachment to that. And I'm not giving you a speech of having nothing. I'm saying I think it's better to, even if you spend a month or see somebody 10 times, do it fully as possible. Rather than, I can only give you like a little bit of my love and trust. Then it's real. Why are you even doing it? Because if I were the recipient, I wouldn't say, really cool. Yeah, just, can you eke out 1% of love for me and we'll share it? That doesn't make sense. I would rather say, how about we commit certain agreements, verbal and mental and emotional. Let's have agreements. Let's create a safe space, and let's enjoy. Let's jump into that in a healthy way. Let's be vulnerable. Let's be open. Let's be transparent. That to me is healthy. So please remember, that to me is not losing your power, because you're deciding, I am going to date you for 1 month. I'm going to date you for 1 year, or whatever your contract is, if it's relationship. Or I don't know about this job, but then go and try it out for 3 months. But whatever you do, give yourself a time limit if you need to. But then give fully to it. Then you'll be able to see it worked or didn't work. But either way, I can own that I chose it. And that's the only way to reawaken ourselves. You want to have the power to choose. You want to have the power to be, a god, goddess. You can't without also taking responsibility. And you have to not take responsibility just for enlightenment, but also for the non-enlightenment types of things we've done. Anything that was not so enlightening, you have to own that you participated. Nothing happens by chance. Everything is reflecting right here, my beliefs. And it's not always easy to know what those are, or to see that you could even possibly believe you participated. But if you do, you can release it all. It's the only way home. Responsibility to come in, responsibility going out. Take a few centering breaths, please. Shake out the thoughts and the tensions. Slight movements of the back just to make sure your neck and back can relax. Exhaling the world and our stuff. Even the parts of our head that are thinking about the talk today. Unwind the mind from thinking it and spend a moment just breathing and knowing that anything that was true for you, you're allowing it to come in and become true for you inside and out. It becomes you. It becomes part of your awakening, your remembrance as God. Anything that didn't resonate, gone, exhaled out. And let's take just a moment to reflect or look at anything in our life, any relation, any event, any experience in our life that comes to mind. We're going to let the Holy Spirit, the Divine Mother, guide us to see what we need to see. Let's trust that. And allow to come to mind anyone or anything that has happened in our lives, preferably recently, but any time would be fine, where someone or something seemed to have taken our power. Somebody took our heart. Somebody seemed to have control over our heart or our body, our happiness, our finances, a boss seemingly having control on our finances. Any and all such things, whatever stands out to you, let's bring them up, bring them forward. I recognize that this person seems to have had something over me, a power, a magnetism, love, nurturance, money, whatever it is. They seemed to have something I didn't have. But I'm willing to accept that it's not true. It's just a person. They can't actually have, but they seem to, and I accept that. But I'm going to look within for just a moment and ask you, Holy Spirit, to please help me to be honest with myself. If there were any reason whatsoever that I would have chosen to not believe that I myself could have that without them, what would my reason be? Be spontaneous and let it come to mind. If there's any reason whatsoever that I believed I couldn't have it without them, what would that be? It could be because I didn't deserve it, I didn't develop it, they're better than me. Whatever comes up, just see it. They seem to control my ability to be happy, or I was just a child. There's rational, logical reasons, true for us kinds of reasons. We're not making them wrong, just see what the reasons are, because they're true for you. And when they become true for us, we become faithful to them, and we will take them to the grave. Because we believe that whatever we believe in, we have to have faith in, and when we have faith in something, it's supposed to be forever. But we are sometimes giving faith to things that aren't very faithful. So, you now have heard a little bit inside of what you might have been doing or thinking to allow that, because of a belief system. All we need to know is, are you ready, willing, and able to give that up? Yes, I will give this up. Yes, I am willing to let go of the fact that I thought they had this because I was just a child. They had this because they were my parent. They had this because they were my partner. They told me they loved me. I believed what they told me. Any of the reasons, despite what you thought you heard, said, what experienced, are you willing to say goodbye to it? And if you do, and if you are, then it means you're going to take responsibility between you and God to fill that in another way. You may not know what that way is, but it will come to you. And it will manifest as healthier people too, as a manifestation, but not your source. God is your source, people are your resource. So see that now. See freeing yourself out of that contract, out of those shackles, and giving yourself permission to love yourself. How can you own that particular trait yourself? And if you think you don't know how and you can't, it's not true. Are you willing to at least try? And soak that in. Yes. Hear the word yes and soak that in. This is mine. Yes, of course, God gave me the ability to do this. How could I pretend I don't have it? Yes. Hear that, affirm that, feel that. What will it look like? Best answer is, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. It's got to be good. And we soak that in and give thanks. We feel the gratitude, soaking that in. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, where I thought love came from a person, it's within me and shared with others. It doesn't mean we all become celibate and abstinent and so. It's shared with others, but I still first get it within me. Prosperity, it's within me. I am this thing. Then it will come to me, rather than I will go get it from somebody who will keep me with the dangling carrot, waiting for them to give that to me. Feel that passionately, a last breath or two, an attitude of yes. And gradually stretch out and open your eyes when you're ready. Very good. I pray the message today has made good sense and that you can apply that well in your life. And remember, we're all in this together, so if ever you need some extra feedback, you can always say, Michael, can you talk about this today? And that's what we'll talk about.